When the Green Bay Packers lose, it happens in the dumbest ways possible. I don't think this is a coaching problem. My theory is this is a roster construction problem.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Google. Wherever you get podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network. Hey guys, this is the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. So thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Lilzy Zhao, we talk about a brutal, terrible, no good, very bad loss to the Chicago Bears and look forward to a potentially quarterback-less duel against the Baltimore Ravens. But first, what's the deal with all the BOZO losses? When this team loses, and this goes back to 2023 at the very least, and I think you could probably go back before that, but I would say in 2020, 2021, those teams had a different set of problems. And that's why I think this is a star issue. When the Packers lost in 2019, in 2020, in 2021, they didn't play well enough. You look at the games where they lost, it was because their best players didn't play well. Surprise, when your best players don't play well, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter who you are. Generally, over time, you're going to lose. And when you lose, it's going to be because your best players didn't come through for you. That's sports. It doesn't matter the sport. It could be football, it could be baseball, it could be rec league soccer. It doesn't matter. If your best players are not going to play their best, you're probably going to lose. When the Jordan Love Packers lose, it is because they do the most bozo nonsense you can think of. It's one of your best players fumbles inside the 5. Now, let's go back to the point that I just made. But then it's Romeo Doubs and the onside kick nonsense. It's stuff like that. A field goal gets blocked. Now, that happened in 2021 as well. But in 2021, in the postseason, the special teams were bad all year. And that Packers offense with an MVP could not score points in the playoffs. They didn't play well enough to win, and their special teams peed down their leg. I think those are related. If this team had more star power, and I think this is a roster full of really good players. Zach Tom is a really good player. Evan Williams is a really good player. Those guys are hurt, and those guys being hurt materially affected the outcome. If those guys play against the Bears, the Packers probably win. But again, the guys not playing, that's not the reason that they lost. The players on the field were the reason that they lost. They played well enough to win for for the first 58 minutes and not the last 2 minutes. Well, if your best players were better, you'd have a bigger margin for error. Now, this last game is maybe not the best example because I think Jordan Love is part of that solution. I think he is the kind of player that elevates everyone around him. But Malik Willis was really good. He missed Christian Watson on a walk-in touchdown, but otherwise he was really good. If you look around the league, there are plenty of weeks where, look at the Eagles, where Jalen Hurts doesn't have his best game. But A.J. Brown is just unbelievable. Or Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, they combine to make 3 or 4 sensational plays. When the Packers traded for Micah Parsons, they had that guy. When the Packers had Tucker Kraft, they had that guy. They don't have enough of those players to make some of the mistakes less important. Like, you're going to have issues. Now, there have only been like 2 onside recoveries all year. Like, what happened against the Bears is pretty fluky, but they also lost a game against the Cowboys because they had an extra point blocked and returned. And they lost to the Browns because they had the game-winning field goal blocked. Well, but they had the whole game to win that game. And they didn't, because they did some dopey stuff. Like Matthew Golden runs out of bounds. If Matthew Golden is a little more field aware, he scores a touchdown. He admitted as much after the game. This is where I think the structural issues with this team come up. Now, do I think they're still capable, even without Micah Parsons, of having, especially if you get Evan Williams and Zach Tom back, of beating anybody? Yeah, that's what a team full of all good players, where you have no bad players really, when no one does stupid stuff, when you don't play bozo football, you can beat anybody. And we saw them against the Steelers. I think that Steelers win is even better in the light of day now, 6 weeks later or whatever it is. They beat the crap out of that team in the second half. I mean, offensively and defensively, beat the crap out of that team. And we've seen them just look unbelievable for long stretches. But they're like, if Tucker Kraft were playing, it would look different. Maybe they would have been able to put away the Bears in ways that they were not able to in the first 2 games. Now, I know when they had Micah Parsons and Tucker Kraft early in the season, they still, they lost to the Browns. They tied the Cowboys. You're still going to have those weeks where that stuff happens. Dak Prescott rides the wings of angels to 40 points in a tie. Sometimes that's just going to happen. I do wonder if this is more about the makeup of the team. That your margin for error changes. And it's not like the Aaron Rodgers Packers didn't have stupid stuff happen to them. They did. But they had Aaron Rodgers. And Jordan Love, for as good as he's been this year, and all the efficiency numbers say that he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and I do think he has been, he is not quite the problem solver that Aaron Rodgers was at his peak. And by the way, in year 3 as a starter, either was Aaron Rodgers until the last 2 weeks of the regular season and the playoffs. And that changed his entire career, his trajectory, everything changed. And we are not the only ones talking about that here on Locked On Packers. Tom Silverstein, one of the most veteran, I think the most veteran guy still on the beat. Now that Bob McGinn has transitioned his role at Go Long, where he's more sort of like a Packers reporter emeritus. He wrote about the similarities between that 2010 Packers team and this one. All the injuries, a nascent star quarterback. But ultimately, that 2010 team, they had Charles Woodson. They had Nick Collins. They had Clay Matthews. Now, I think there are players on this team who can play at that level. I think you could get a Javon Bullard mini leap in the playoffs, or an Evan Williams mini leap in the playoffs. Could you get an Edgerrin Cooper mini leap? This team has the guys where you go, oh yeah, I could see in a year, I could see Edgerrin Cooper being all pro. In fact, we thought it could happen as soon as this year. Progress isn't always, development and progress are not always linear. So maybe that's one of the reasons why, he's just not quite there yet. I think he can get there for Edgerrin Cooper. But Bullard, I think, has exceeded all expectations for his play this year. Evan Williams, I think we expected him to take a step forward. He played at Pro Bowl level. Like the Pro Bowl, the Packers getting 1 Pro Bowler is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Jordan Love should have been a Pro Bowler. Evan Williams should have been a Pro Bowler. Zach Tom probably should have been a Pro Bowler. But they got really excited about Sam Darnold and Dak Prescott, I guess. I don't know. The good news for Green Bay is there are players on this team who can play like stars, and this was the case for the team coming into the year. They have guys capable of playing at that level. But we need to see them do it more consistently. And losing some of those players, Christian Watson not at 100%, Josh Jacobs not at 100%, you don't have Zach Tom, you don't have Evan Williams. Those are guys who are capable of playing at that level. But this is a little bit like a Chrysler 300 looks like a Phantom until a Phantom pulls up. and you look like a team that's really good until you play a team that has real superstar impact players, and then you don't quite look the same. Now that I would say that specifically has not been the issue this year, ironically, because they lost to the Browns, they lost to the Panthers, they lost to the Bears. Those teams do not have more superstar players than the Packers. But if the Packers had more superstar players, even if the total talent of the team, you understand, like if you were to add up all the talent on the team and let's say it gets to 1,000, if you had some more superstar players and maybe a couple other players where there was a little bit of a weaker link, maybe that margin is different. Or when the game starts to slip away and starts to get a little closer, you have someone to make those plays. This is just a theory here. So I'm just spitballing here. I'm not even sure I 100% believe this, but it's just something I've been thinking about. Like, why does this happen to this team? Ironically, it's happening to the Baltimore Ravens too, and they have some star players. Some star players. I think their roster is pretty similar to the Packers in terms of talent, and that's part of what informs this conversation. Like, they don't have the elite receivers. They don't have the defensive playmakers. So that makes me start to think, oh, maybe these rosters are actually closer together than we realize. And this is the reason why they're both doing bozo stuff. We'll throw this idea at Lilzy Zhao, and we'll talk about Bears, and we'll talk about the Ravens next on Locked On Packers. This episode brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats: fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. And my favorite part, the stacks. Lets you choose one player and up to 3 times you can use them in your same lineup, like a QB's passing yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. We've got a great group of fans here on Locked On Packers, and if you want to interact more with our fan base, I've got the best opportunity for you. It is the Locked On Packers Everydayer Club, which gives you access to ad-free audio from Locked On Packers, compatible with iTunes, Spotify, podcasts, wherever you get podcasts. Every major podcast platform is going to make this work. Plus, you get an invite to members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat for just listeners of this show. So Locked On Packers people, they're different. They're special. So LockedOnPackers.supercast.com is the website. Go sign up and come be a part of our family here at Locked On Packers. The Green Bay Packers might have coal in their stocking this week after a brutal loss to the Chicago Bears on Saturday night, although I guess maybe the loss is its own kind of coal. Lilzy Zhao definitely is getting presents this Christmas. She joins us from Fox 6 in Milwaukee. Lily, Merry Christmas, and how you doing?
Thank you, Peter. Your presence is my present. It's a joy to be here on this podcast, and I think that's all the joy that the Packers have brought us this week is us doing this podcast. So I am doing well. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm hanging in there for sure. I know you and I are both battling some pestilence, some illness.
Yep.
So let's hope that we are able to make it through here without hacking up respective lungs. It's hard to even put into words what happened on Saturday night to the Green Bay Packers. And the first thing I thought of was the Seahawks game in 2014. I guess it was the year 2015. It was the 2014 season. And you can point to 3 plays that are nearly carbon copies of what we saw in Chicago. And what I think is so interesting about that part of it, Lily, is there were Mike McCarthy problems in that game. The 4th down decisions, the field goals. That did not happen in this game. It was just one of those fluky meltdowns. Do you come out of it how different do you come out of it feeling about the Packers than you went into it?
It's just, I think it's been one of their issues this season. They just continue to find ways to beat themselves in crazy ways that I don't think people thought of. It just reminded me of that Browns game where they just handed Cleveland the win. It was just, it was a meltdown in the Browns loss. It was a meltdown in the Chicago loss. I mean, credit to Caleb Williams and the Bears offense for taking advantage of the onside kick and going down and scoring and winning in overtime. I mean, they had all the momentum at home and they were not making the mistakes the Packers were. I mean, the Packers were turning it over in crucial situations. They were, abysmal in the red zone, 0-5. But it just was reminiscent of that game where they did everything wrong to hand away the win. And that's what was so disappointing, but that's kind of been on trend this season for this 2025 team.
And what is, I think, even more frustrating, Lily, is there were plenty of excuses you could have made, right? Jordan Love goes down in the first half and Tucker Kraft's already out. It's your first game without Micah Parsons. Even with all of that, they were an onside kick recovery and 1 first down from beating the 2 seed in the NFC on the road in a must-win game for them. And so it's like, guys, we know you're good enough. We know you can do it. Like, even down all of these people, you're a well enough coach team. And so it's just, that's the part that I find so frustrating. And so how much of this is a reflection of the coach? Because I think in some of the other games this game, and I'm just like, he didn't make Josh Jacobs fumble. He didn't make Romeo Doubs run away from the football on the onside kick. Like, I can't blame Matt LaFleur that much for that. But you pointed out the trend. And I think that's the part where people start to go, okay, but when they lose, this is the way they lose. And isn't that a coaching thing? I don't have a good answer here, Lily. What's your answer?
I don't either. I think it's just they have shied away from making the big play or just the right play in crucial situations. It just seems that when it gets a little bit tight, this team just doesn't really know how to respond, which is not really a good trait to have in late December when you're making a push for the postseason. I mean, you should have a team right now that knows, okay, even if Romeo Doubs doesn't get the onside kick, we still have a defense that has a chance to, keep the Bears out of the end zone, or goes into overtime. We have a chance to not fumble the snap, or if we fumble the snap, to stop the offense. So there are ways to go about this and win. But to your point, it was Matt LaFleur wasn't out there fumbling the football. He wasn't out there, giving up touchdowns. So, you can talk about maybe he doesn't have his team prepared in those critical situations late in game, but the execution part also has to come with it. And that has been lacking in the losses that they've had this year.
It is, I think, the one place, and let me throw this at you. And this is actually how we opened the show. I'm starting to wonder if, I like the way that this team is built. There's very few, if any, true holes, but especially outside of Micah Parsons and Tucker Kraft, how many true field tilting players do they have? And that when you have all of these good players, but no great players, or very few great players, that your margin for error is just smaller. Like, the really good teams also do stupid stuff, but they've got enough good players that make great plays, or great players that make great plays, to make up for it in those moments. And we saw that the Aaron Rodgers teams, because they had Aaron Rodgers, or they had Clay Matthews in those big moments, or they had Devontae Adams to make those plays. And I just wonder if part of this is the way this roster is put together, where especially without Tucker Kraft, especially without Micah Parsons, if this is the margin of an NFL game. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And, you talk about that Bears game, you don't have those critical players. Jordan Love goes down. That's another player you can't replace. And not knocking Malik Willis whatsoever.
That's not Brian Gutekunst's fault, by the way, right?
Right. But then you don't have Zach Tom. If Zach Tom is playing, does that sack come? Does Jordan Love get injured? There's a domino effect for having star players being out of games. And, you're right. It's just when you don't have Jordan Love, you don't have Micah Parsons, two of your most important players on both sides of the football, there had to be somebody to step up. And I know Malik Willis played his tail off, but there was nobody else, I guess, around him in that situation, even on defense, to say, okay, without Micah Parsons, I'll be a closer. I'm going to try and sack Caleb Williams, or, I'm going to tote the rock and run for 50 yards. And there just wasn't that player, like you mentioned, that could have stepped up in a crucial situation when the Bears were getting close to earn this team a win. And that might be the difference this year. Listen, the injuries have been terrible. They're terrible for every team, but this year, especially for the Packers. And, without your key guys, they haven't really truly been able to overcome that, especially without Jordan Love.
I point to the 49ers, though, Lily, and I say Nick Bosa has not played most of the year. Fred Warner has not played most of the year. Michael Williams is out. Their best players are all hurt, and they're making it work. And so, I I have sympathy for the guys. I don't have sympathy for the team, though, in that respect, because every team, to your point, is banged up. They're all dealing with something. And so you have to find a way in these moments. Did you come away, though, feeling any differently about who the better team was between Green Bay and Chicago?
I think it's an interesting question, because on paper, or not even on paper, the eye test for 58 minutes, 100% the Green Bay Packers. The last 2 minutes when it counted, they melted down and the Bears were the better team. I think when you ask me now, I still think this Packers team, if they don't melt down, they're the better team. It is what it is. They really held the Bears in check for 58 minutes, but those last two were critical and they didn't perform. So, I come away knowing the Packers can beat anybody if they just don't beat themselves. But the issue is they continue to beat themselves. But again, I still do believe this Packers team is the better team, but they haven't been able to prove that for 60 full minutes.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned the Browns game, because they just invented ways to lose that game. And the blocked kick and running at Matthew Golden, running out of bounds for no reason. And it's like, it was wild. And I think the Cowboys game, that you didn't lose that game, right? But you tied it because you totally mismanaged. Once you got across the 50, it was a car crash, and Matt LaFleur called it, of time management, and no one seemed to really know. And so all this stuff starts to add up. And I do feel like you can start to figure out and pull some pieces apart here. Like, there are some places to point the fingers if you want to point fingers. I'm kind of not interested in finger pointing, especially at this point in the season, because everything is still out in front of them. Like, even without Micah Parsons, we saw that's still a defense capable of playing at a really high level. 0 points in the first half for an offense that in the second half of the season has been rolling. And so I think they can play well enough still to make them competitive. They got to get healthy, though, Lily. Like, we don't know who's going to play quarterback against the Ravens on Saturday. I don't know. That seems like a big problem.
I think it's a huge problem, right? And it's, how do you game plan for that? Is Jordan Love going to clear concussion protocol? Is Malik Willis, is his throwing shoulder going to be okay? I mean, if it was the other shoulder, you might be able to live with it. But if, God forbid something happens to those two guys, are we going to see Clayton Tune making his second career NFL start? We don't know, but that's what makes the game planning so hard. But then on the other end, you don't know who's playing quarterback for the Ravens. And so there just is a massive, quarterback carousel between both teams, with both teams still fighting to get in the playoffs. And so this is a massive storyline this week to see who will be under center for both teams.
We've got more with Lilzy Zhao next on Locked On Packers. And it's early in the week. We don't have, injury reports or anything like that. But at least on Tuesday, Jordan Love and Malik Willis were each limited in practice. Now, a jog through. So not a real practice. But at least Jordan Love being out there is telling us, okay, like, usually, for the example, Quay Walker, when he missed multiple weeks with a concussion, I believe he wasn't even practicing the first week after that concussion. Mm-hmm. So being back on the practice field is a good sign for Jordan Love. And it's not a short week, right? Saturday to Saturday, you get the full week. So I wonder, Lily, if even like a lighter practice schedule, which is what they're going to get, might make it easier for Love to recover, because it's more just rest.
Yeah, I think it's just rest and just.
We're not doctors, okay? We're just here speculating.
Definitely not doctors, but it's definitely more rest and just making sure you're okay. You can clear things, because again, we all know concussions are so tricky. Yeah. You feel good one day and not good the next day. So, kind of curious to see when they go through a full practice what Love's status will be. But you're right. I think the fact he's out there is very encouraging. Again, after the game, I just saw him kind of talking to some teammates, and I don't want to speculate, but if it was more serious, I don't know if that would have been the case if we would have seen him in the locker room. So all signs are encouraging, though, just for how hard of a hit, helmet to helmet hit that was on Love.
Yeah, brutal hit, and I think there was some question about whether or not it was actually a roughing the passer. I thought pretty obviously was roughing the passer. I was like, that's roughing the passer in 2008. Like, that's even before they changed the rules. That was roughing the passer to me. The Ravens have the same question, though, Lily. Lamar Jackson dealing with a back injury. Tyler Huntley will have to be the quarterback. Even if Malik Willis is the quarterback, if it's Tyler Huntley, you got to feel pretty good about the Packers' chances here, right? Even if Malik Willis is in an altered state, I feel like that's advantage Packers.
Yeah, I do. I think so too. But you can never discount backup quarterbacks against a Packers defense. I mean, the last time Tyler Huntley played, the Green Bay Packers. He threw for over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and ran wild.
He lit them up.
He lit them up, and the Packers won by what, 1 point?
Yeah.
And so you can never discount
on a 2-point conversion, right?
Yeah, on a 2-point conversion. That's right. Yeah, field 2-point for the Ravens. And so you never discount him. He can play as well. He's like their Malik Willis equivalent.
Yep.
So you don't want to, say it's going to be an easy game for Green Bay. I think for Green Bay to make it an easy game, be up 21 points with 2 minutes left, and maybe then it'll be considered easy. But it really never is. And again, you never know what's going to come for a team that, again, still has a playoff shot here. So this is a desperate Baltimore team coming into Lambeau.
Yeah, and look, the Packers' magic number is 1. It could be 0 by the time that they play because the Lions play on Thursday. But we found out early in the week that it's going to be Max Brosmer, who's going to make the start. Did I say his name right? I never. Brosmer. It's going to be the backup, the guy who threw one of the most ridiculous pick sixes I've ever seen in my entire life against the Seahawks a couple weeks ago. That guy's playing quarterback for the Vikings. So if Detroit can't win that game, that's a tough look for them. But we talked about this earlier in the week, Lily. The 49ers look pretty damn good, especially pulling away from a game Colts team on Monday night. This team, despite a lot of injuries, they've been able to make it work. Like we could end up here with the Packers playing the Vikings with a backup quarterback in the last week, and the Lions with a chance to give the Packers the NFC North crown if Green Bay can take care of business against Baltimore this week, which would be a pretty wild turn of events given, the way that we were feeling maybe Saturday night around, 11 Central Time.
Yeah, again, all hope is not lost. A division crown is still out there, which is incredible that we're even saying that. But at the end of the day, I know this team wants to take care of business. You don't want to rely on the Niners or the Lions to help you, back into the playoffs. They want to win their last 2 games and see where the chips fall. But at the end of the day, if you do lose against the Ravens, all the pressure is on you to win against the Vikings, who have nothing to lose, but to keep you out of the playoffs yourselves if everything else kind of falls that way. So I think the pressure really is on Green Bay on Saturday to say it's our final home game of the regular season. Yep. We could be back here if we win the next 2 games. So there's just a lot riding on this game on Saturday. But you're right. It's a tough slate for the Bears. The Lions also, fighting for their lives as well. So all Green Bay has to do is win on Saturday, but it's easier said than done.
And if there's a team, if I'm the Bears, that I do not want to see in the last week with nothing to play for,
the Lions.
It's the Lions.
Yeah.
Because Dan Campbell is going to empty the bag in that game. I joked yesterday he's going to call 14 trick plays. That might be low. Like it's going to be a kitchen sink game. And so again, that's why all these games are so vital here. If you were going to pick someone, like let's take the quarterbacks out of it because that's the obvious answer. You've got Zach Tom, you've got Evan Williams. We got Josh Jacobs. Let's even throw Josh Jacobs in the mix because he played after the fumble. I think he only played like 3 or 4 snaps after that. Which to me was not a benching. To me, that was if you're so hurt, you can't hold on to the ball, like because you're worried about your knee, let's get you out of the game. Like that's what it felt like to me. I don't know how it felt to you. I don't know if there was any clarity on that, but that's what it felt like. Anyway, if I gave you Zach Tom, Evan Williams, and Josh Jacobs, and you could make one healthy enough to play something close to full strength this weekend, which one of those guys would you pick?
Ooh, I know my answer last week was Zach Tom.
Yeah.
And for obvious reasons, that was a pretty good pick. But
I think so.
I think this week
maybe Jordan Love plays the whole game if Zach Tom is out there. Yeah.
I'd say Josh Jacobs. We all know what Derrick Henry can do. This is still a talented Ravens offense. If he's toting the rock and getting success on the ground, keeping this Packers offense on the sideline, you need the Packers and their run game to match. So I think Josh Jacobs would be a massive key this week. But again, he's been banged up and dealing with that knee. It's swollen. I think you're right in the point of after that fumble, it was to just come out for precautionary reasons. But if he can be back and be even like 70% and keep and have long drives for the offense, I think that will be key against this Ravens team.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this Ravens team, Lily. I'll be honest. Like they had that game against the Patriots, almost won, and the Patriots are probably going to be the 1 seed in the AFC, and that was with Lamar Jackson being out for a good chunk of that game. So this is still a game opponent. Be still very talented. Green Bay is going to have to. They're going to have to be maybe not at their best, but they're going to have to play at a high level. And it's got to be really tough to come off of the last 2 weeks that they've had feeling like we gave 2 games away. And now you're going to have to play this desperate team backed into a corner. Even if it's Tyler Huntley, in some ways that makes them more dangerous because an injured Lamar Jackson we've seen is not a very good player. Like he's just not been very good the last, 6 weeks when he's been out there and playing. So this is a like underratedly tricky spot. I know we kind of jumped the gun a little bit talking NFC playoff scenarios, but I just, it's one of those things that they're going to have to, come correct, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key 3 words I'm going to say are close the game. Again, we've seen how many fluky endings this weekend alone in NFL games across the league. And it was, if you can't close out the game, you have a shot A, to lose, or B, give up a game. This is key this week for Green Bay for how those losses happen against the Broncos and the Bears. Close the game in the fourth quarter if you can, or in the second half. Just do it. And also, this Ravens team is turnover prone, right? For a defense that hasn't gotten a takeaway, get one against Baltimore.
Catch the ball,
or punch out the ball. It's there for the taking against.
Yeah. Lily, can you remember a training camp story that has ended up being more of a waste of time than the prioritization of the punch out in Packers training camp? Have they done it once all season? I think they have, but it doesn't feel like it. You watch the Bears play, they do it like 3 times a game. It feels like, no, they don't actually, but it feels like that.
Yeah, and even if the play is ruled dead, the ball's still out, so there's still a chance. Just give yourself a chance, punch the ball out. We saw it multiple times in the Ravens game against the Patriots. They can turn the ball over, so do it. Punch that ball out.
Punch that ball out. All right, if there's going to be a player who is going to key the Packers to victory on Saturday night at Lambeau Field, Lilzy Zhao, it is whomst?
Oh, it's always a good question.
Such a simple one, but it always is like we gotta really think about it.
I know. The easy answer is the quarterback, whoever it may be, Malik Willis or Jordan Love. But again, I want to say I want to see some shine from this defensive line. I want to see some shine from a Rashawn Gary. I want to see him come out there and wreak havoc up front. That's something that we haven't seen since Micah Parsons went down, which has obviously been one game. But ever since he went out against the Broncos, they couldn't sniff Bo Nix. So I want to see some pressure up front. I want to see a sack. I want to see multiple sacks and make that quarterback's life difficult and give this Packers offense a chance.
I'm going to add Matt LaFleur because I think he called a really good game the last 2 weeks. And really, I would say the last month, going back to Thanksgiving, I feel like he's really turned a corner this season with some of the tendencies where he was having a little conservative earlier in the year. I want to see that bespoke game plan for Malik Willis. If he is in fact the quarterback, we know he just seems to love calling the game when Malik Willis is in there because every weird freaking dirty run that he can think of, they're going to call, and the receivers turn into Randy Moss whenever he's out there. And so I don't understand it, but they do. And so maybe they need Malik Willis to be throwing to the defense in practice, and that way they'll get some reps catching the ball because they catch everything when Malik Willis is throwing the ball for this Packers team. But yeah, I want to see a Matt LaFleur game where you feel like, okay, he controlled that game. Cause I think there are some questions about that coaching staff in Baltimore and John Harbaugh. Like, I don't know about coaching for his job, but he's going to be desperate. Let's see some desperation from Matt LaFleur as well. Lily, have a very Merry Christmas, and we will talk to you not quite next year. We will talk to you next week.
Sounds good. And have a Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holiday, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Peter.
All right. Thanks to Lily for joining the show. Always great to spend some time with her. We will be back tomorrow. I will not be here. And there's a number of reasons why that is true. Our pal Brandon Snide from the Locked On Packers squad show is going to be there. We have our Locked On Packers squad show last night. It was live. Brandon and Coach Jags took care of it for me. I'm dealing with some things this week. Is it the best time to be dealing with these things? No, it isn't. But that is the way life works sometimes. And I appreciate the people who have reached out. So I really, what we do here and feeling connected to you guys is something that is always helpful to me when I'm going through something, and our family is going through something. And it really does feel like when my family is going through something, the Locked On Packers family gets behind. And even if you guys don't realize it, I feel that way because I know you guys are here, you're listening, you're a part of this, you're locked into and locked on everything we do here. And it really does mean the world to me. So I hope everyone has a really Merry Christmas, and enjoy our crossover. Brandon is going to do a great job with Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens. We will not have a show on Friday, but we will be live God willing, on Saturday night, Packers Ravens after that one. Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. Go subscribe wherever you get podcasts to make sure it's always in your feed. Subscribe to my stuff, social media. I'm getting crushed by Bears fans lately. That's fine. They can be loud until the playoffs. They're going to lose their next 2 games anyway. If you need a last minute gift for someone, or people keep asking what you want, make it easy. Ask for the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through lockedonpackers.supercast.com. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen at Locked On NFL and stay Locked On Packers.